How about that? How
Game for
about that?
Sinner.
6 weeks ago, Jannik Sinner was on his knees. Not in triumph. In collapse. Paris. Late May. The air was thick, suffocating, the kind of heat that turns a tennis court into a furnace. Sinner had won 30 matches in a row. 30. A streak that made him look untouchable, unstoppable, a machine with no weakness. And then, in a single afternoon, it all came apart. Against a player ranked 56 in the world, a name most casual fans had never heard, Sinner stood one game away from a routine straight-set win. One game. And then he wilted. The heat pressed down on him like a hand around his throat, and the man who had looked invincible just days before suddenly looked mortal, fragile, human. The streak ended. The number one player on the planet walked off that court broken. He didn't play again for weeks. He flew home to Milan. He went in for medical exams, the kind of tests that make people whisper about what might be wrong, about whether the body that carried him to the top of the sport had finally betrayed him. Silence followed. No matches, no answers, just questions hanging in the air, growing heavier with every day that passed. Then came Wimbledon. And if you thought Sinner was walking back into the spotlight on easy terms, you were wrong. His very first match, the very first round, turned into a 5-set war against a man ranked far below him. Twice, Sinner found himself down a set. Twice, the tournament threatened to end before it had even begun. Twice, he had to reach somewhere inside himself and pull out something stronger than doubt. He survived. He clawed his way through. And from that brutal, bruising opening battle, something changed. From that point forward, Sinner did not lose another set. Not one. He rolled through the draw like a storm gathering strength, and in the semifinals he dismantled Novak Djokovic, the most decorated champion the sport has ever seen, without so much as a flicker of resistance. The message was unmistakable. Whatever had broken in Paris had been rebuilt, forged into something harder. Waiting for him in the final was Alexander Zverev, the German powerhouse, freshly crowned champion of the French Open, the very tournament where Sinner had crumbled. Zverev arrived at Wimbledon with a title in his bag and a target squarely on his rival's back. But there was a shadow hanging over this final too, a number that told its own story. 10 times, Sinner and Zverev had met on a tennis court as professionals. 10 times, Sinner had walked away the winner. 14 straight sets lost. Not one victory, not one moment of revenge. Zverev knew the numbers. Sinner knew the numbers. And under the London sun, on the most famous grass in the world, both men understood exactly what was at stake. The match began as a duel of giants, evenly matched, neither man giving an inch. Zverev's serve was a weapon, thundering across the net at speeds that seemed almost unfair, bombs of 139 miles an hour crashing into the corners. Sinner answered not with raw power but with precision, aces placed like a surgeon's incisions rather than a boxer's punches. Two great forces, colliding, refusing to yield. The first set stretched into a tiebreaker, tight as a drawn bowstring. And it was Zverev who broke through first. A forehand winner, ripped up the line, sealed the set in his favor. He spun toward his box and let out a roar that echoed around center court, a release of pressure built up over years of near misses on the biggest stages. For a moment, it looked as though history might finally bend. For a moment, it looked as though the streak of 10 straight losses might end right here, on the grandest stage of all. But Sinner did not panic. He adjusted. In the second set, something shifted in his eyes, in his timing. He began to read Zverev's serve before it even left his opponent's racket, anticipating, adjusting, closing the gap between instinct and reaction. Zverev's forehand, so reliable all match, began to betray him under the mounting pressure. The second set tiebreaker slipped away from the German, and suddenly the match was level. 1 set apiece. The crowd, packed with royalty and Hollywood stars watching from the royal box, leaned forward as one. Then came the moment that would define everything. Deep into the third set, locked at 3 games apiece, 2 hours and 42 minutes into a war of nerves, Zverev finally carved out his first breakpoint of the entire match. This was his opening, his chance to seize control. Sinner responded with a delicate, dangerous drop shot, and Zverev exploded forward to chase it down. But the grass, damp with tension and time, betrayed him. His foot slipped, his body twisted violently, and his knee bent in a way knees are never meant to bend. He grabbed at it, wincing, and for one heart-stopping moment, the entire stadium held its breath. Was this it? Was the final about to end not with a champion crowned, but with a body breaking down? Sinner didn't hesitate. He crossed to the other side of the net and helped his rival to his feet, a flash of humanity in the middle of a battle for history. Zverev tried to play on, tried to fight through the pain, but something had changed in his movement, a hitch, a hesitation that had not been there before. Moments later, a missed forehand sent his racket flying across the baseline in frustration. Sinner seized the break, seized the momentum. 5-3, and this time, there would be no slipping away. Sinner served out the third set and never let go. The fourth set became a formality wrapped in tension, Sinner closing the door with the same precision that had carried him through the entire tournament. And then it happened. A forehand winner ripped up the line, exactly like the shot that had won Zverev the very first set of the match. Except this time, it belonged to Sinner. Match point. Championship point. History, finally rewritten. Sinner didn't leap into the air. He didn't scream. He simply fell backward onto the grass, arms spread wide, staring up at the London sky, as if he needed the earth itself to catch him after everything he had carried to get there. It was his 5th Grand Slam title, his 2nd Wimbledon crown in a row, and it completed one of the most remarkable turnarounds in modern tennis, a journey from collapsing in the Paris heat to conquering the lawns of Wimbledon in under 7 weeks. A year earlier, he had needed to survive a final where he wasted 3 match points against a different rival entirely. This time, there was no wasted chance, no late collapse, just control, from start to finish, when it mattered most. Zverev leaves London with pain in his knee and a bitter taste of yet another final loss to the same man, his losing streak against Sinner now standing at 10. Yet even in defeat, the rankings will lift him past Carlos Alcaraz into 2nd place in the world, a small consolation in a tournament that once again slipped through his fingers. And Sinner walks away not just as a champion, but as proof of something deeper. That collapse is not the end of a story. Sometimes it is only the chapter before the greatest comeback of all.